Michelin-starred restaurant Marée Noire. Chandelier lights rippled like waves, red wine glasses clinked softly. Aria Voss, 28, stunning CEO, was dining with shareholders for a crucial merger meeting. 12 soldiers in bulletproof vests burst through the entrance, splitting into 4 tactical formations, locking exits, tightening their circle around Aria. In the corner, Hale, 34, single dad veteran working as a waiter, set down his tray and slowly rolled up his left sleeve. The steel glint of a challenge coin caught the light, revealing a faded tattoo. Sable 12, O+, Shas 7. Liam spoke quietly but with absolute authority. Team 7, stand down. Passcode, Winterglass, 2. The team leader froze mid-step, stunned like he'd been struck by lightning. The entire restaurant held its breath. Hale wasn't supposed to matter. At 34, he was just another face in the service industry. A single father working double shifts to support 7-year-old Evie after losing his wife to a medical emergency that insurance refused to cover. By day, he hauled freight. By night, he served tables at Marée Noire, one of the city's most exclusive restaurants. The wealthy diners barely noticed him, which was exactly how Liam preferred it. What they didn't know was that before he carried serving trays, Liam had carried much heavier burdens. Former JTAC, Joint Terminal Attack Controller, call sign 7, he'd once coordinated precision airstrikes for Sable Team, an elite special operations unit that officially didn't exist. The symbols of his old life were hidden but present. Around his wrist, he wore a navy blue paracord bracelet that Evie had braided for him, with tiny letters spelling breathe that she'd carved herself. For when you get scared, Daddy, she'd explained with the wisdom only a 7-year-old could possess. In his pocket, wrapped in tissue paper, was a paper crane Evie had folded from a napkin that morning. Put this by a nice person's glass, she'd instructed. It was their ritual. Every shift, he'd find someone who looked lonely and place the little crane near their drink. The third symbol was more serious, an NFC-enabled challenge coin from Sable Team, worn smooth from years of nervous handling. One tap against another Sable coin would verify authenticity and rank. It was supposedly decommissioned, but old habits die hard. Tonight's shift had started normally. Aria Voss, CEO of Voss Dynamics, had reserved the private dining room for a high-stakes merger negotiation. Energy and AI technology worth billions was on the table. The early humiliation came from his manager, who'd scolded Liam for placing Evie's paper crane near a guest's wine glass. High-level clients don't appreciate childish games, the manager had snapped. One of the shareholders had smirked. Veterans serving tables. How the mighty fall. Liam had simply picked up the crane and continued working. He was used to being invisible, but his military training never switched off. He noticed things others missed. The 3 security guards who checked the emergency exits twice, not standard protocol for VIP protection. The small signal jammer disguised as a cigarette case on the neighboring table. The wine display that had been mysteriously repositioned to block the corner's security camera. Most telling, the men wore earpieces with a distinctive blue threading pattern. Sable standard issue. Liam had memorized the layout, cataloged potential weapons, and identified choke points. Old habits from a life when seconds meant the difference between mission success and catastrophic failure. As he served the main course, he observed the tactical positioning of what were clearly not ordinary restaurant security. These men moved with military precision, checking sight lines and establishing overlapping fields of fire. Aria Voss seemed oblivious, focused on her merger documents. She was brilliant, beautiful, and completely unaware that she was walking into a trap. When Liam placed a water glass near her elbow, he whispered just loud enough for her to hear, "The exits are compromised. When I give the signal, hit the floor." Aria looked up, confused. "Excuse me?" But it was too late. The 12 soldiers were already moving into position. Liam's hand instinctively went to his sleeve, fingers finding the familiar outline of his challenge coin. 7 years since his last op. 7 years since anyone had seen the tattoo that marked him as one of the most dangerous men in the room. Time to remind them why Sable Team had never lost a mission. "Where are you watching from?" If you were just a waiter but spotted military-grade threats surrounding a CEO, would you speak up or quietly prepare? Comment your thoughts and subscribe to see the most intense part coming next. The tension in the private dining room was palpable. Aria was signing preliminary agreements with two foreign investors, her phone buzzing with anonymous threats. Stop the merger or bleed. She dismissed them as corporate espionage tactics. The 12 soldiers entered just as the main course was being served. Their leader flashed what appeared to be official security credentials from the mayor's office. Sophisticated forgeries that would fool most civilians. Public humiliation came swiftly. The restaurant manager bowed obsequiously, welcoming them to protect the CEO. He barked at Liam to get back to the kitchen and stay out of the way. One of the shareholders started live streaming, joking about the dinner theater show. But Liam was already 3 steps ahead, implementing what looked like routine service, but was actually tactical preparation. He repositioned the tablecloth to create a slippery surface near the support column. He loosened the bolts on 2 chairs, making them unstable under pressure. He moved the heavy wine bottles within arm's reach of his serving station. Most importantly, he wrapped his paracord bracelet tighter around his left wrist. The same technique he'd used to immobilize insurgents during night raids. The anomalies were becoming impossible to ignore. Liam spotted a blue stitching pattern on the team leader's tactical vest. Sable issue. But the formation they were using was pattern delta, a containment strategy that Liam himself had developed during his time as team leader. Something was very, very wrong. The lead operator, call sign Rook, was positioning his men with textbook precision. 4 at the exits, 4 creating an inner perimeter around Aria, 4 maintaining overwatch. It was flawless execution of a capture and extract protocol. But Rook kept glancing at the corner where Liam was working. There was recognition in his eyes mixed with confusion. These weren't random mercenaries. They were former Sable operators. Aria sensed the shift in atmosphere. "What exactly is this about?" she demanded. "Ma'am, there's been a credible threat against your life," Rook replied smoothly. "We need to relocate you to a secure facility immediately." The shareholders looked nervous. One was recording everything on his phone. Another was texting frantically under the table. Liam continued his preparation, moving with the practiced invisibility of a career service worker. He folded Evie's paper crane and placed it strategically next to Aria's wine glass. Not a random act of kindness, but a signal marker for what was about to happen. The restaurant's lights flickered. Someone had activated the signal jammer. Cell service died instantly. The emergency exits clicked as electronic locks engaged. "Time to go, Ms. Voss," Rook announced. That's when Liam made his move. He slowly rolled up his left sleeve, revealing the faded tattoo that every Sable operator would recognize. Sable 12, under O+, Dr. 7, the blood type and call sign of their former team leader. But it was the challenge coin that made Rook freeze. Liam activated the NFC chip with a subtle gesture, and Rook's own coin vibrated with an authentication ping. "Team 7, stand down," Liam said quietly. "Passcode, Winterglass 2. The code that only a Sable team leader would know. The code that hadn't been used in 7 years. Rook's face went white. 7? But you're dead. The op in Kandahar. "I got out," Liam said simply. "Question is, who told you I didn't?" The restaurant fell silent except for the hum of the jammer. Aria stared at Liam, suddenly seeing him not as a waiter, but as something far more dangerous. "Stand down, all units," Rook ordered his men. But 4 of them, the ones who weren't former Sable, ignored the command and moved closer to Aria. That's when Liam realized the full scope of the operation. This wasn't a rescue or even a kidnapping. It was a corporate coup, using his former teammates as unwitting pawns. "Rook," Liam said, his voice carrying the authority that had once commanded airstrikes and saved lives. "Who contracted this op?" "Thought it was protective detail for a CEO under threat," Rook replied, confusion evident in his voice. "Anonymous client, routed through 3 shell companies." Liam's training kicked in as he analyzed the tactical situation. 8 former Sable operators who would follow his orders, 4 mercenaries who wouldn't, 12 total hostels, one principal to protect, and a restaurant full of civilians. The odds had just shifted dramatically. "Ma'am," Liam said to Aria, his tone completely different from the deferential waiter she'd known moments before, "I need you to trust me. This isn't a rescue operation." Aria's eyes darted between Liam and the armed men surrounding her. "Who are you?" "Someone who keeps his promises," Liam replied, fingering the paper crane she'd placed by her glass. "And I promised my daughter I'd always protect good people." The four non-Sable mercenaries raised their weapons. Rook and his Sable team turned toward them, confusion turning to realization. Liam's hand moved to his hip where a black button on his jacket, actually a pinhole camera, had been recording everything. The real battle was about to begin. The moment Liam's challenge coin authenticated, everything changed. The restaurant's atmosphere shifted from controlled chaos to something far more dangerous. A battlefield where loyalties were being redrawn in real time. Rook stepped back from Aria, his weapon lowering slightly. "7, what the hell are you doing serving tables?" "Long story," Liam replied, his eyes never leaving the four non-Sable mercenaries who hadn't stood down. "Short version, someone convinced the world I was dead. Someone who knew enough about Sable protocols to hire my own team against me." The first layer of revelation hit like a sledgehammer. "This isn't a protection detail," Liam announced to the room. "It's a corporate kidnapping disguised as a rescue. Someone hired former Sable operators to force Ms. Voss into signing over temporary authority of her company, then escort her to a secure location where she'd conveniently disappear." Aria's face went pale. "The merger documents aren't merger documents," Liam finished. "They're power of attorney transfers. Check the fine print." One of the shareholders, the one who'd been live streaming, suddenly stopped recording. His nervous laughter died as he realized what he'd just captured on video. But Liam wasn't done. He activated the pinhole camera on his jacket, and the feed appeared on the restaurant's main display screen. The same screen used for wine presentations. Audio from earlier in the evening began playing. Two board members discussing payment to a contractor, money routed through charitable foundations, and explicit instructions to make the CEO temporarily incapacitated for decision-making. The second layer of revelation was even more devastating. "Rook," Liam said, his voice carrying the unmistakable authority of command, "tap your coin to the authentication terminal." Confused but obedient, Rook approached the restaurant's payment terminal and tapped his challenge coin. The NFC reader displayed information that made his blood run cold. "Sable team was never disbanded," Liam announced to the stunned room. "We were transferred to deep cover civilian protection protocols, and according to this authentication log, Ms. Voss has been under Sable protection for 3 years. Aria stared at him in shock. "What?" "You were a legal intern who helped draft the in extremis custodian protocols when you were 19, Liam explained. "You signed the authorization that gave Sable Team 7 emergency authority to override any PMC or security contractor when civilian lives are at stake." The pieces clicked into place with terrifying clarity. Aria remembered the summer internship, the classified documents, the serious young man who'd explained the life or death importance of civilian protection protocols. "You're 7, she whispered. "You're the one who made me understand why those protocols mattered. And you're the civilian we've been sworn to protect ever since." The 4 non-Sable mercenaries realized they were outgunned and outmaneuvered. But they'd been paid too much to walk away quietly. The fight that followed was brutal but brief, and showcased exactly why Liam had earned his legendary status. When the first mercenary lunged for Aria, Liam used the repositioned tablecloth like a matador's cape, sending the man sliding into the support column. The loose chair bolts gave way when the second mercenary tried to use furniture as cover, dropping him hard onto the marble floor. Liam's paracord bracelet became a weapon when he used it to bind the wrist of the third attacker to the wine display, while simultaneously grabbing a heavy bottle of Bordeaux that connected with surgical precision to the man's solar plexus. The fourth mercenary found himself facing not just Liam, but Rook and 2 other Sable veterans who'd finally understood what was really happening. But the most devastating moment came when Liam pulled out Evie's paper crane, the one he'd placed by Aria's glass as a signal marker. "You see this?" he said to the room, holding up the delicate origami. "My 7-year-old daughter made this. She told me to put it by a good person's glass. She was right about you, Ms. Voss. He unfolded the crane carefully, revealing a message written in Evie's careful handwriting. Daddy, remember the pinky promise. Good people first. The emotional weight of the moment hit everyone in the room. This wasn't just about corporate intrigue or military protocols. It was about a father who'd kept a promise to his daughter, a promise to always protect good people. Aria's eyes filled with tears. All this time, you were watching over me? All this time you were worth watching over, Liam replied simply. Rook approached his former team leader with something approaching reverence. 7, what are your orders? Liam looked around the restaurant, at the subdued mercenaries, the shocked shareholders, the recording that would soon destroy the careers of everyone involved in the conspiracy. Secure the scene, protect the principal, and someone call the real authorities, not the bought ones. But as sirens began wailing in the distance, Liam realized the biggest revelation was yet to come. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. The in extremis protocols were never about protecting one CEO. They were about protecting the one person who could expose us. Check the Voss Dynamics research files. Check what she's really been working on. Aria caught his expression. What is it? Ma'am, Liam said carefully, what exactly does Voss Dynamics do? Beyond the energy and AI that's public knowledge? Aria hesitated, then seemed to make a decision. We've been developing clean-room quantum computers capable of breaking military-grade encryption. The merger wasn't about energy technology. It was about selling quantum decryption capabilities to foreign governments. The room fell silent as everyone realized the true scope of what they'd just prevented. And you were going to stop it? Liam asked. I was going to expose it, Aria confirmed. The merger documents contained a kill switch for the quantum project. I was willing to destroy my own company to keep that technology out of the wrong hands. Liam looked at his former team, scattered around the restaurant like the ghosts of operations past. They'd all served to protect democracy, freedom, the idea that some things were worth more than money. Tonight, they discovered that sometimes the most important battles aren't fought in foreign countries. Sometimes they're fought in Michelin-starred restaurants, by single fathers who remember their promises and CEOs brave enough to sacrifice everything for what's right. The paper crane sat on the table between them, a small reminder that even in a world of military secrets and corporate conspiracies, the simple wisdom of a 7-year-old could still save the day. Good people first. The news broke at dawn. Veteran waiter exposes corporate coup at Michelin restaurant. Within hours, the footage from Liam's pinhole camera was trending worldwide. The hashtags the Eurashar raised his sleeve and CoinPing dominated social media as people shared the incredible story of 12 soldiers, one CEO, and a single dad who changed everything. The public humiliation was swift and merciless. The shareholders who'd orchestrated the coup found their faces plastered across every news outlet. The man who'd been live streaming the dinner theater became an unwitting star as his own footage contradicted his story. Corporate boards across the country began emergency meetings to distance themselves from the scandal. But the real consequences went deeper than social media buzz. The FBI's Corporate Crimes Division moved quickly once they had Liam's evidence. The payment trail through charitable foundations led to a network of corrupt board members, foreign investors, and defense contractors who'd been systematically targeting American technology companies with classified capabilities. Aria found herself at the center of a congressional hearing, not as a defendant, but as a hero. When senators asked why she'd been willing to destroy her own billion-dollar company, her answer was simple. Because some things matter more than money. But for Liam, the aftermath was more complicated. 3 days after the restaurant incident, he was summoned to a nondescript office building in downtown Washington. Aria insisted on coming with him, still wearing the navy blue paracord bracelet that Evie had made for her. The meeting was with people who officially didn't exist, discussing a program that was never supposed to be acknowledged. Sable Team 7, the woman in the expensive suit said, "You've been off the books for 7 years. Your death was administrative convenience." Whose convenience? Liam asked. People who thought a decorated war hero asking too many questions about defense contracts might become inconvenient. The full scope of the conspiracy emerged in that sterile conference room. Liam hadn't just been protecting Aria for 3 years. He'd been the target of a systematic campaign to discredit and eliminate whistleblowers within the defense community. The quantum decryption project was just the beginning, the woman explained. Your former commanding officer, Colonel Hayes, has been selling classified technology to foreign governments for 5 years. When you started asking questions about irregular defense contracts, he arranged your death in Kandahar. Aria gripped her paracord bracelet tighter. So, all of this, the merger, the kidnapping attempt, everything, was to silence both of us? You were the legal expert who could prove the technology transfers were illegal. Liam was the soldier who could testify about how the contracts were approved. Separately, you were manageable threats. Together, you could have brought down the entire network. But justice came in unexpected forms. That evening, Liam returned to his small apartment to find Evie waiting with a surprise. She'd made dinner, mac and cheese with hot dogs cut into little flowers, and set 3 places at their tiny table. I invited the pretty lady, Evie announced as Aria knocked on the door. She looks sad, and Daddy says we help sad people. Over dinner, something extraordinary happened. Aria, who'd spent her adult life in boardrooms and congressional hearings, found herself laughing at a 7-year-old's jokes about why dinosaurs couldn't play cards. Because they're extinct. Ms. Aria, Evie said seriously, Daddy says you're very smart with computers. I try to be, Aria replied. Can you make computers that help people instead of hurt them? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Later, after Evie was asleep, Aria and Liam sat on his small balcony overlooking the city. She's right, you know, Aria said quietly. I've spent so much time fighting against the wrong uses of technology. I forgot to create the right ones. What would that look like? Liam asked. Medical research, climate modeling, educational systems for kids like Evie. Aria paused. I could liquidate Voss Dynamics entirely. Use the money to start something completely different. That's a big risk. So was trusting a waiter with a paracord bracelet and a paper crane. The conversation was interrupted by Liam's phone. Rook was calling. 7, you need to see the news. They turned on the television to find breaking coverage of mass arrests. Colonel Hayes and 17 co-conspirators had been taken into custody. The quantum decryption program had been terminated. Congressional hearings were scheduled. But the most surprising news came last. The president has announced the creation of a new civilian technology oversight board, the anchor reported. The board will be chaired by former Voss Dynamics CEO Aria Voss, with former Sable team leader Liam Hale serving as security advisor. Evie wandered out of her bedroom, rubbing sleepy eyes. Daddy, why is the pretty lady crying? Sometimes people cry when they're happy, sweetheart. Are you happy too, Daddy? Liam looked at Aria, who was staring at the television screen in shock. He thought about the 7 years he'd spent believing his service meant nothing, that he was just another forgotten veteran working invisible jobs. Tonight, he'd learned that every shift at the restaurant, every protective glance, every moment of vigilance had mattered. He'd kept his promise to his daughter. He'd protected good people. Yeah, Evie, he said, pulling his daughter onto his lap. I'm happy too. Aria turned to them, still holding the paracord bracelet. You know what this means, right? We're going to change everything. Evie looked between the 2 adults with the wisdom that only children possess. Can I help? I'm good at making things that help people. And that's how it started. Not with corporate mergers or military protocols, but with a 7-year-old's belief that good people should help each other, and 2 adults brave enough to listen. 6 months later at the City Hall ceremony, something unprecedented was about to happen. Aria stood before the podium, no longer a CEO, but something more important, the guardian of technology that could change the world. The moment everyone expected had arrived. Liam would be officially recognized for his service, Aria would accept her appointment, and they'd move forward as partners in the new oversight board. But then came the twist that no one saw coming. Before I accept this appointment, Aria announced to the packed auditorium, I want to transfer something more important than government authority. She pulled out a small device, an NFC reader connected to the in extremis custodian protocols. Every Sable veteran in the audience, including Rook and his team, stood at attention. The in extremis authority was never meant to rest with one person, Aria continued. It was meant to protect civilians, all civilians. Sarkakiyum. She looked directly at Evie, who sat in the front row wearing a new navy blue dress, her small hands folded carefully in her lap. Evie Hale, Aria said formally, would you please come forward? The audience murmured in confusion as the 7-year-old walked to the podium, looking tiny but unafraid. The Evie Hale Trust, Aria announced, will now hold the in extremis custodian protocols, not a government agency, not a corporation, but a trust dedicated to protecting ordinary people from those who abuse power. Liam's jaw dropped. This wasn't what they'd discussed. Aria knelt to Evie's level and handed her a small challenge coin. Not a military one, but something new, something that belonged to the future. When you tap this coin, Aria explained gently, it means you're asking the good soldiers to protect people who can't protect themselves. Do you understand? Evie nodded solemnly, then looked at the room full of adults staring at her. Does this mean I can help more sad people? It means, Aria said with tears in her eyes, that you get to decide who the helpers help. Rook stepped forward and, to everyone's amazement, knelt on one knee before the 7-year-old. At your service, Custodian Evie. The entire room erupted. This wasn't a ceremony about government appointments or military honors. It was about transferring the most important power in the world, the power to protect the innocent, to someone who would never abuse it. Sometimes raising your sleeve isn't about showing strength. Sometimes it's about showing trust. And sometimes the most important authority doesn't go to the strongest person, but to the one with the purest heart. Evie held up her new coin, looked at the crowd of powerful adults, and said the words that would change everything. Okay, let's help everybody. Which moment amazed you most? When the coin authentication revealed 7 is alive, or when Evie became the youngest person ever to hold military custodian authority? Comment your thoughts and subscribe Hero Dad Stories for more stories where power goes to those who deserve it most. The paper crane still sits on their kitchen table, a reminder that sometimes the smallest gestures create the biggest changes.